To give you some context here, right? What we're talking about is an ontological perspectivism. And an ontological perspectivism is not the relatively trivial claim that everyone has the world from a point of view. It's instead the idea that point of view is absolutely fundamental to reality, that point of view or perspective goes all the way down, that reality itself is cracked or fragmented, that reality only manifests in terms of aspects. And the concept of aspect is used at several different layers or levels in the understanding of reality. So let me just kind of zoom in. So from the outside, the big picture point of view, reality is broken into aspects. And these aspects are what you and I might call, your existence and my existence, are total streams of experience. But it's important, like Eigenhoff understands experience as basically world, because there's not a real world on the other side of experience. Experience is world from point of view, is an aspect of reality. So reality is shattered into aspects. Each aspect is an existence. Okay, and then our existence. What is our existence? What's an abstract description of your existence or my existence? And I would say that existence is something like a stream or a continuum of situations that melt into one another. So an existence is a stream of situations. Now, each situation, like in my existence, that will be a situation from my point of view, right? And that would be an aspect of a situation. So an aspect of reality itself is a stream of situations from a point of view, is a stream of aspects of situations. Okay, so finally we can say, let's zoom in a little bit more. What are situations made of? And you might say that situations are organizations of entities or things, and these things can be people, they can be, maybe we're talking about protons, maybe we're talking about real numbers, or maybe we're talking about puppies, pebbles, any kind of thing as a speakable unity, any kind of intentional object. So then situations, aspects of situations, I should say, situations from a point of view, there's something like organizations or entanglements of entities that are also given from a point of view. So aspects of entities. So reality is fragmented into aspects that are existences. Existences are streams of aspects of situations, and then aspects of situations are sort of entangled, interrelated aspects of entities. So we're using this aspect metaphor, 3 different times as we zoom in. And let's try this when we zoom out. So if I see a red rose by candlelight from a particular place in the room, that would be an aspect of the rose. But maybe I see this rose in the middle. I'm going to propose to my girlfriend, right, by candlelight with a rose. So that rose is caught up in that particular situation. And that one situation is caught up in the sort of story or stream of my entire existence. And my entire existence would be an aspect of reality, an aspect of the world itself. So there's no talk of consciousness in the physical here. We can classify various, we can say, a toothache is relatively internal, a tornado is relatively external, but nothing is metaphysically inflated here, right? Point of viewness is sort of implicit in the manifestation itself. Okay, so that gives you kind of a big picture. I zoomed in, then I zoomed out. So I ended the last video, I was talking about how the rose is speakable, intendable. So the rose exists in the space of reasons. We have a logical grip on the rose. I understand the rose to be something I can refer to, something I can talk about with others. So following Meinong, I would say that the most important kind of being of the rose would be this between-usness, its speakability, its logical or signative presence. So I could write a short story, and maybe there's a rose in that short story that plays this huge role. Maybe it's like some powerful symbol, but the rose is not empirical. You can't smell it, and yet the rose obviously is important. So you could say that there's a lot of existentialism in all of this. You could have some vivid dream that changes your life, even though it's not an empirical thing in the sense that you don't expect others to have. The only kind of access that others have to it would be signative access, as in you can discuss it with them. So it is signatively present to them as an object they can refer to. But at least as we typically understand things, you have to dream your dreams alone. So indirect realism, which is something that Eigenhoff is opposed to, where you could say that this philosophy is an alternative that's built differently from the ground up. But the indirect realist, from Eigenhoff's point of view, would be misreading this logical transcendence of the rose and projecting it into some weird realm. So the rose in itself, for Kant or for a lot of people, would be some kind of physical rose that's hyper-physical rose that has a completely independent kind of being. So even if there's no perception, no possible perception or reference to the rose, this real rose in some sort of postulated external space would be just fine, right? It would have some sort of absolute solidity that is independent in principle from all perception in reference. So Eigenhoff would say that this is a misreading of the logical substance, which is the between-usness of the rose, right? So from a point of viewness would be the fact that you always see the rose from this side or that side, and this lighting or that lighting, with your colorblind human eyes or your 17 alien eyes, or maybe a zebra's eyes, right? So we have to, I should remind you that, like I opened the first video, for Eigenhoff, consciousness is being itself. So consciousness is not a stuff. It is the presence of all entities, including empirical or physical entities. And because the hard problem of the physical is not usually seen, this is probably somewhat shocking. Like, you could say that this is related to idealism, but it is so far from subjective idealism. If you think it's subjective idealism, I would say that you're not understanding it, because logic is understood to be fundamentally between us, and experience is understood to be perspectival manifestation of the shared world. So in some sense, the reality of the shared world is hyper-emphasized, whereas indirect realism would say that the world of experience is a kind of delusion, a user interface, or so on. So I would say that this is in some sense an intense kind of life world realism, but it would be anti-realism in the lingo of a lot of indirect realists. Another thing, like, so you could say there is only presence, but Eigenhoff agrees with Heidegger and Derrida that this presence is a trace. So we don't have the punctiform now. And this also connects to Searle's work on the way that time is a kind of stretched. It's not like a point on the real number line. It's not physics time. So even though there is only presence, this is horizontal presence. Like, you could say that we're in the middle of doing something. It's more like a meaningful moment that carries the past with it and anticipates the future. So you really, this is where you want to just be phenomenological. Like, let's say as you're reading a sentence, when you read a sentence, you have to sort of remember the first part of the sentence and anticipate the end of the sentence. So even if you just look at the way that you experience reading, you can see that time is not punctiform. And William James is really great on this in his book, The Principles of Psychology. Like, he's truly a great resource for this. Okay, so this is one of my favorite parts. So each existence or aspect of the world, which you could call a phenomenal stream, which traditionally people would call a stream of phenomenal consciousness, is a streaming of time, like a local streaming of time. So Heidegger says, Dasein is time, Dasein is discoverture or unveiling. So time is existence, is unveiling. How can we make sense of this? So the presence of one aspect or moment of an entity is the absence of all its other moments or aspects. So this is like, if I see one page of the book, I'm not seeing all the other pages, right? I'm assuming like the normal situation where you're not using photographs or mirrors, you're just really reading a book. Or if I'm hearing the beginning of a piece of music, I'm not hearing the ending of a piece of music. If I'm looking at one side of the coin, I'm not seeing the other side of the coin. So you have this enduring coin, this enduring book, this enduring piece of music. You have these speakable unities, but they manifest over time in the sense that they show one face or moment at a time, and that's one of the reasons we call them moments. So this